one of the things I'm going to hopefully show you today is that these things that we've talked about are very real, and they can also be measured. So Wendy talked about improvements in cognitive performance from exercise. So I'm going to show you how that can actually be measured with real-life case studies. We've already talked about omega-3/6, and I'm going to show you my omega-3/6 in a few minutes, which will be quite interesting. And I think also Andy referenced earlier, and so did Greg, the importance of digital healthcare services. We know that healthcare is really struggling to cope. You know, these services are crucially important to be able to deliver services for the future. So I'm going to start today with a small case study of a lady called Jo. So we just filmed this case study last week, and Jo is a really typical mum. She's 45. She works for a large insurance company. She drives around all week, seeing clients around the north of England. It's a really, really tough job. She's got a really, really busy lifestyle. She's found it difficult to control her weight, to eat properly, to do exercise. She first came to us only 3.5 months ago, and she had a health assessment, and that's part of our service that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. And then she had a bit of a shock from that health assessment, and we're going to find out what happened next.
Over the past 20 years, I've been what you would call a yo-yo dieter. I'd lose weight, and then I'd come off the diet, and then I'd put all the weight back on and probably more. What I didn't anticipate was seeing the results and the impact that it had on me. The notes from the GP said, you know, you need to go and see your GP because you're at high risk of being diabetic. So I went to the GP and he confirmed that I was pre-diabetes. I booked a coaching call with the dietitian, so Philippa at Liftsmart. We just went through everything, you know, went through my worries, my concerns, the reassurance. It was fantastic, you know, and I think that's what makes the biggest difference and has enabled me to focus on me and my lifestyle. And it is a lifestyle. I'm no longer on a diet. I'm not focusing on losing weight. I'm just focusing on being healthy. And I just see it as an ongoing future rather than being a short-term fix. So I had some results, so I went for a blood test, a retest last week. Seeing my results on the metabolic section, going from pre-diabetes to in the normal range was absolutely amazing. I could not have believed in 3 months I could have achieved those results. So I'm a big advocate of Liftsmart, and I'd certainly recommend it because out of all the things I've done historically, this is the thing that has changed my lifestyle. You know, there's many things out there where you have tests. I think the difference for me was the coaching support. For me, it was about tailoring it around my day-to-day, so it made it personal to me.
Just to add a couple of things onto Jo's story, when she actually came to do the video, and there's going to be a new edit of this soon, the other thing she said was that after starting to, she's lost about 15 kilos in weight, by the way, after starting to do this and doing more exercise, she actually mentally feels a lot better, in a lot better place. So she said she's actually having a better relationship with her husband. She feels that she's doing better at her job. And she also feels that she's setting a better example to her children as well. So when she actually came in to do the video as well, she met Philippa, her coach, her dietitian, for the first time. And there was this magical moment when they got together and hugged, and it was beautiful. You know, that was the moment, you know, as a founder, but also as a person, you see someone, you know, you've helped to change their life, and you go, this is what it's about. You know, this person's not going to be on medicine. She's not going to be causing, you know, a huge drain on health services with type 2 diabetes. So a great moment, and explains our service pretty well. So let's look at the big picture. 23% of all deaths in England and Wales are considered avoidable, which is an incredible stat. What does that mean? Well, it means 120,000 people a year die, well, in 2015, die from causes that are avoidable. So that's epidemic proportions, which is a truly shocking figure. Well, what makes that up? Well, cancer and heart disease are leading causes, but there are lots of things that also sit underneath that. Diabetes is also one of those things. If we think about cancer and heart disease for a second, the NHS and Cancer Research UK say that 4 in 10 of these cancers can be prevented. So what do we need to do? Well, we all kind of know this stuff. We need to eat healthy, drink less alcohol, maintain a healthy weight, protect your skin, stay physically active, and stop smoking. This is nothing new. We know this stuff already, so why do we not do it already? We did a little survey to 1,000 people earlier this year, 26th of July. We said, when it comes to your health this year, what would you like most to change? Most people turn around and say, I want to improve my diet. I want to reduce my stress. I want to sleep more. I want to reduce my alcohol. Most people don't you don't sit there and go, I want to reduce my risk of having a heart attack. That's just not what people think about. So if we're going to try and change some of these things, we need to address the concerns that people have every day, rather than necessarily some of that scary stuff. So how do we get people to choose the avocado instead of the juicy burger? We've all had that decision many, many times. How do we get them to choose the gym instead of the cold beer? These are really tough decisions that we all try and make every day. And we believe part of the reason that we often make the poor choices is that we don't really have a really decent feedback loop. We can have the beer and have the burger and actually feel quite good at the time, right? But what we're actually doing is building our risk, and actually we're not going to sleep that well, and over time we're going to reduce our energy, but we're not really aware of these things because we have no real way to measure it. So it brings me nicely onto the Liftsmart mission. So we're here to try and, this is a kind of quite a big mission, to deliver the most effective behavioral change platform that improves people's health using science, technology, and human support. So, we have a global ambition for a startup, which is pretty punchy considering, we started with 2 people and now we're 12, and we want to kind of conquer the world, but we will see what happens. But, talking about numbers, this was only a pipe dream a few years ago. We've now worked with nearly 5,000 people across the whole of the UK, and also including Jersey, but not Guernsey, I might add. So, there's a challenge for you. So we believe that it's a combination of using science, technology, and human support that will allow us to affect the most change. So we don't believe in just technology by itself. It's got to have a combination of these things to make it efficient. So we're not going to replace Greg quite yet with an AI bot, but we'll try. So our approach to behavior change, so it starts off with a really detailed health assessment, because unless you know what's going on, how do we start to improve it? That seems pretty obvious. If you want to lose weight, you get a scale, right? So we have a scale. It's called our health assessment. We then go into in-depth health coaching delivered by registered dietitians. This is all about helping you really understand your life in a very intricate detail. So once we understand what's going on in your life, whether you've got kids or you've got a busy job, we can start to figure out a very precise plan for you to improve. It's then over to you to start to make regular incremental lifestyle changes. We then follow that up with a monthly follow-up health coaching call with your dietitian, where you get told off if you've been a bad person. But most of the time, no, it's really, really super supportive. And we're there on your side to help you make those gradual changes. Sometimes people do it, sometimes they don't, but we're there to support you along that journey. And then eventually, the other important part is a follow-up assessment. Eating all that oily fish, has it actually paid off? Well, we can measure that. If your vitamin D was low and you've started to take a supplement, or you've been running outside, well, we can measure that too. And it's that feedback loop that can really encourage you to carry on, just like a weight scale might encourage you to continue to lose weight. This also maps really well to the stages of change. So if you've ever looked into the science behind this stuff, there's something called the trans-theoretical model, which I'm not going to talk about today, but it maps really nicely to the pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance stages of that work. And there's an awful lot of research done within this space. And I'm hoping one day we will contribute to some of that research. So quickly, what does a health assessment mean anyway? So we have 3 different types of health assessment. They have pathology involved in all of those, so blood testing, 6, 34, or 39. We also do a full nutrition analysis. We also look at your exercise. You can connect to your wearable devices, so we can find out how many steps or how much you weigh. We also look at sleep, smoking, other lifestyle factors. We also have a cognitive test, which is really important. So we'll have to see what Wendy thinks about that one in a bit. And also we do a mental health assessment as part of this. You also then get a results consultation and health coaching. So we're trying to look at health in the round. We're trying to look at everything, not in huge amounts of detail, but in enough detail to start to let us figure out what your issues might be. We then need to somehow collect blood from you. And we have things like a home kit that we can send in the post. And we have nurses that operate across the whole of the UK and Ireland. We also have clinics across the whole of the UK, including one in Jersey, believe it or not. I think the furthest person that we've worked with is in the Outer Hebrides. So going back to that idea about scalable services, this is a service already that is available across the whole of the UK and Ireland, and eventually we hope to be across the world. Once you, this is another really interesting thing. So blood collection is really super hard. And one of the things that we're working on with an American company is a new way to do this. And this is pretty exciting. So with this thing, you just put it on your arm, press a button, and it takes the blood, and then you can send it off in the post. Now, if anyone has to take blood regularly, this is kind of game-changing, right? You can get services delivered in your home cheaply and easily and pain-free, which is amazing. So once we've got your blood, we do a profile, you can connect your wearables, you fill in all your information, and then it zooms onto our platform, and we have a team of dietitians and GPs that then analyze all of that stuff, and you get it back on a nice little screen like this. I'm not going to go through the details of exactly what happens, but you can see my health has improved over time. We have this thing called a health score, which I can talk about in more detail another time. But you can, from here, start to dive down into different aspects of your health. This is either on your computer or your mobile phone. This particular result is the bottom one here is my omega-6-3 ratio. So yes, you can measure it, and we do all the time. And it's about 93% of people that we actually measure this test are in the red zone. So it means that their ratio is not optimal. So the vast majority of people are not great. I have been trying really hard to try and improve this, but I really don't like oily fish. So, I have been taking a supplement, working on it, and I can see I am making some progress over time, which is really satisfying, and that's motivating me to continue improving my diet. But the next step, we also do health coaching too. So we figured out what's going on. Maybe it's oily fish. It's that point we need to figure out what strategies might help you to improve. Is that a supplement, or is it cooking slightly differently? Well, when you have your own personal dietitian to help you along the way, they'll help you with that. We also have some digital tools that we've been producing. One of those is on the right. This is a fruit and veg tracker. The interesting thing about this is that most people lie about how much fruit and veg they actually eat. So if you ask them, they say, yeah, probably 4 or 5 portions. If you start tracking it, it's more like 2. So, another challenge would be, what if we got everybody to eat 5 portions or even 7 portions of fruit and veg? Where would we be today? I think a hell of a lot healthier. So another thing that we do, this is more on a company stage, we actually then take all of the data from all of the people we work with and start to analyze that and then try and figure out strategies for companies to make improvements. But really what we're doing is acting a bit like a public health authority and saying, well, actually, our big issue is omega-3, or maybe it's stress, or maybe it's sugar consumption. And this data allows us to start to target individualized wellness strategies across companies. And moving on, I think one of the things that's really important from a private company point of view is to make sure that what we're doing is delivering a safe but also effective service. So we've just completed our first piece of research with Imperial College. The date is the 9th of October, so I literally just got this back the other day, and it's going to be published very soon. And it's really exciting for us to do this, and we've got lots of other research projects coming up from next year. But the results after this particular trial showed that after 6 months, we saw a 15% improvement in overall health for the population. We saw a 58% improvement in percentage of the employees with a red health score. So these were people who kind of had the most risk. So there were people like Joe in the case study before. They were super motivated to make improvements and went on to make a great improvement. We saw a 48% increase in high-intensity exercise, a 35% increase in daily fruit consumption, a 5% reduction in the average systolic blood pressure, 15% improvement in omega-6 free ratio. This wasn't me. Probably need to do it. We also saw a significant improvement in HbA1c, which is your diabetes marker, which is, again, really, really important. Significant improvement in vitamin D as well. These are just some of the results. We actually saw a statistically significant improvement in 24 individual markers across the study. So a really, really, really great piece of work. And this was one for Wendy. So we do a cognitive test too. And we also saw a significant improvement in cognitive function for the people that took part. And that's really exciting for the individuals. But also when we work with employers, that's pretty exciting for them too, because everybody wants to get more out of you during your day. So at the end of this particular study, we asked people, was it good? And 92% of people turned around and said, they really wanted this to be rolled out to the whole company. And believe it or not, the bosses listened, and they did, which is good news for us. So moving forwards, that's the end of our first research project. But our model can be expanded to lots of different areas. So we have another 1-year study that we're now moving into to kind of expand on what we first did. We're now working with a finance company to look at employee cognitive performance, which is going to be really, really interesting. And the other thing, which seems completely separate to this, but it's not at all, is preconception health. So we're working with a charity called Tommy's on a proposal to look at trying to help parents, and not just the mum here, both the mum and dad, try and get healthy before they conceive. And we're really, really excited about that project because we think that will add an awful lot of value, and it's an area where there's not that much research at the moment. So I'd like to finish off with some gripes before I get to have a little moan slash a bit of opportunity. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is this term that I really, really hate called the worried well, which I think is just a really bad thing. So 92% of the people that we assess at LiveSmart are not conforming to the NHS and World Health Organization dietary and exercise minimum requirements, right? So if we're not conforming to those things and we're all getting fatter, then are we actually really healthy? And the answer is, well, most of us aren't really that healthy, or we're certainly building risk over time. And I know that's not an uncomfortable thing to say, but it's the truth. So are we, I think we all should be a little bit worried. We all need to take a bit more care with our health and talk about it. The next thing that is really, really consistent is prioritization. Every single person that we talk to in a health coaching course starts off with, I don't have enough time. Right? I don't have enough time to do this. I'm too busy at work. I'm too busy with kids. The reality is we all have enough time. It's a question of prioritizing this stuff in your life appropriately. The next thing is communication. So when we start to deliver results to people, most people kind of don't like to talk about health because it's private. But when you start to deliver results and start to really talk about the details of health, it starts to open things up, and communication is super, super important if we're going to change things. The other gripe is around knowledge. Most people think they know a bit about health, but when you start to really quiz it, people's overall health knowledge is really super poor. If we're going to help people to improve, we need to figure out a way across education for young people as well as adults to improve. And the final thing is legislation. This is really, really important too. How many times a day do we walk into a newsagent's or a garage and get presented with chocolate and crisps and fizzy drinks and all things that are not particularly good for us? This has a cognitive effect where we end up thinking that this is the normal thing to buy. This isn't going to change overnight. We need to use things like legislation to change these things. So they're my challenges and my gripes, and this is my business, and hopefully you'll hear a lot more about us in the future. Thank you very much.